This weekend, Andy is back in 1997, Ryan builds his costume collection, and we put Mario in his place out on the course. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andy.
And this is Weekend Rental, episode 174. All right, welcome everyone back to another episode. I'm going to just apologize in advance. We've put off recording as long as we can due to both of us having colds, but I still sound like a mutant version of myself. So we're going to power through. I probably can't keep all the sniffles, coughs, and sneezes out of here, but I'm going to do my damnedest. So bear with me.
Yeah, I feel bad because it was like Tuesday rolled around. I'm like, I feel like crap. Can we do it another day?
I blame you.
You feel like crap.
I think this is the first recorded case where you passed viral illness through text, and that's how I got it. So really, your patience zero.
I don't text that much.
No, but when you were sick, you texted. You got to be careful. You can't text sick, otherwise you spread it around. So, yeah, a lot's happened. We got a lot coming up. I think there's some good stuff to talk about, but I want to kick this one off with a doozy. This is an article from everyone's favorite gaming publication, Rolling Stone magazine. And they put out an article in the last couple of weeks about the 7 best retro video game devices to buy in 2024. So let's go through this, what they recommend. I'm going to just state here that I don't think Rolling Stone understands what is actually in production anymore, and that maybe these aren't the best investments. So the editor's pick is the Nintendo NES Classic, which they noted is selling for $150 online because it's no longer in production. The best arcade cabinet, they suggest Arcade 1-Ups, which, as everyone knows, have gone from like $300 devices to about $800 anymore. So smart. The only console that's actually in production on this list, they recommended best for old school gamers, the Atari 2600 Plus, which as a value proposition, I think is a little at the price it's listed for. And then they went to best for 90s kids was the Nintendo Super NES Classic Edition, which again, they noted was going for like $150. Best for Sega fans, the Sega Genesis Mini. Best Sega alternative, the Sega Genesis Mini 2. That was a giant leap. And then maybe my favorite one from this list is best for Sony fans, the Sony PlayStation Classic.
Oh, wow.
So not only
is this AI written?
Yeah. So not only is this hilarious because all but one of them are no longer in production and are being sold secondhand, possibly used, possibly new old stock. But then the one for the PlayStation fan is like the biggest slap in the face ever because it runs like dog crap and you're going to pay like $80 for it when it was fire saled down to $25.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, good on them for not being like just a list of like Powkiddy and Amber Nicks and all the AliExpress.
That's the thing is like, for the price point they were pushing, why were they just like, get a Raspberry Pi?
Right, yeah.
This Cana kit from Best Buy is going to cost you $80, and with a good memory card or thumb drive, you're pretty much there, you know. Pair it with an 8BitDo controller.
Yep. Yeah, there's so many of those consoles now that even come preloaded with everything on them now too, you know.
Yeah, those Amazon hard drives that everyone's peddling, which I get it. Like, it's a great idea to get a hard drive that you just plug into your PC that's all ready to go, but what is that thing also running on your PC that you know?
Yep.
That's where I kind of draw the line. I'm like, I'm not just going to plug something in from China that's 4 terabytes. Like, no thanks. But yeah, good on Rolling Stone to try and connect with the gaming community, I guess. But 30 minutes of actual research probably would have done well to let the staff realize that they're peddling wares on people that are grossly overpriced and being hawked for substantial markups. So.
Yeah, what a list. I mean, you would think because they've got a perfect record on the rock and roll side of you know their greatest list over there.
Right.
Nobody's ever fought or had any opinions on those type of lists. So
I
I
mean,
figured, they were confident that they could branch out.
their rating scale on music is solid. Are you a legacy band that's been around for 30 years and they're signed to a major label? Guess what? 5 stars. Doesn't matter what it is. Like I've been reading the stuff I've been reading from them this last year. It's just like, oh, what are you guys even doing anymore? Like, it's just catering to the major label crowd.
Oh yeah. Huh.
All the real music fans know you go to Reddit and argue about why your favorite band is the best.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we can all agree that Weezer sucks.
Are we there now?
I think we all come around to the fact that they suck, right? Or at least that 90% of their library sucks, but we all still love them because they put out the Blue Album and Pinkerton.
Yeah, they've definitely sucked longer than they haven't sucked.
100%.
So
100%.
For sure that.
I was watching a YouTube video where somebody was defending the Green Album the other day, and I was just like, no, I'm not getting on board with that. Like, Hashpipe was fine. The rest can fuck off.
Which apparently that was an Ozzy Osbourne song. It was supposed to be for Ozzy.
Shit?
Yeah, that's what I saw somewhere, which is weird.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, well, that was a fun little nugget. Speaking of some nostalgia, I see you've brought your X-Men back into the film.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so X-Men 97 came out on Disney Plus. So far there's been 3 episodes. And this might be one of my favorite things that Disney Plus has ever done. Probably is. It's kind of unreal how dedicated they are to making it seem like it doesn't skip a beat, Like it really is the next season,
I've heard there are some controversies where fans are upset that the gratuitous plumpness of certain female characters is not held true.
Sure. On the other end of that, this is definitely more of a PG-13. Like they grew it up a little bit.
That's funny because I always kind of remember that show feeling like that anyway. Like it always felt a little above its, after school special sort of slot that it ran in.
Yeah. The subject matter is obviously like a metaphor for a lot of other things that as a kid you don't really know,
Sure.
But yeah, I think because of that, and there was just so much politics and a whole bunch of other stuff in there that it seemed a lot more grown up. And there was more violence in it, I guess. But yeah, this is a whole other step above that. And the animation is so good. The action scenes in it are some of the best in anything I've seen animated.
Did they keep the classic intro?
Yep.
Nice. And yeah, so they're just
the classic intro.
Are they just dropping new episodes week by week?
Yep. Okay. They started with 2 right away, and then they dropped another one every week. I don't know how many it's supposed to be, but yeah, it's cool. It's really good.
You're not the only person I've heard ranting or raving about it, so I'll probably wait until it's ran and then binge it, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. If you watched any of that old show.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah. It was never one that I was dedicated to, but I did watch quite a bit of it. So
yeah, you're gonna pick up a lot of it. I'm a pretty big X-Men fan too. Like I've read a lot of the comics and stuff too. I still go back every once in a while to watch to read some, and there is a lot of more of little references in there too.
Yeah, it's funny how that
Easter
property
eggs
has been treated too. Before the Marvel universe, those were probably the first 2 of those movies were probably some of the best comic adaptations, and then it just sort of continued to shit the bed with them after that, which is too bad.
Yeah,
not the point where they were awful, but they were just, I guess, what the MCU became, right? Just popcorn filler. There was no substance or meat to it. It was just big fights and action sequences, and
yeah. X-Men is tough to do over a long period of time because there's so many different characters that you have to revolve in and out, and some aren't as interested as the other people, and you can't just have Wolverine be front and center all the time because he's pretty one-dimensional.
Right. Yeah, I think that X-Men 2 was probably my favorite for sure. I think I saw that one in theaters too, which helped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. It's not like there's a whole lot new that comes to Disney Plus either. I mean, obviously, I've had to catch the Tay Swift movie because that's my priority. But I'll get to X-Men after that. So
Yeah, I understand.
yeah. I mean, she wears sequined unitards. I mean, what more do I need to say?
I'm kind of in that sweet spot where my wife was too old to really get into Taylor Swift fandom too much, and my daughter is still young enough. So I'm in that sweet spot where I can kind of avoid it.
Yeah, I can say that our household, I mean, I know my wife and daughter obviously have heard songs because they listen to that kind of music, but yeah, it has not really landed. My daughter tends to be more of a Olivia Rodrigo sort of, which I can appreciate.
Yeah, she's got a little bit more punk in her.
Yeah. It's a little questionable buying, a 12-year-old an explicit album, but she's going to listen to it anyway, so
yeah.
Whatever. I listened to worse by that age. Well, speaking of my daughter, actually, that's kind of a perfect segue. We picked up Princess Peach Showtime. Did you get that also?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So
I haven't figured out if my kids are going to enjoy it or if my daughter is going to play it or not. But
I think kids is the right audience, especially young girls. Well, first off, let me just say, fuck Best Buy. I hate these companies that, like, Target included, but I think Target doesn't do it as much. But Best Buy was one of the places that had like a pre-order bonus item, right? And you could only pre-order it shipped to home. There was no pickup at store day of launch. So those fucks made sure I got the fucking standee thing that I don't give a shit about. That was the bonus. They made sure that arrived on launch day, but didn't bother shipping my game until like mid Friday. So I didn't get the thing until like Saturday night, which whatever. I lost out on a day. Who gives, that's me just first world problems. Not a big deal, I guess. But I do find it incredibly annoying. Like, if you're going to do that, just let me pick it up at the store, which they used to do, but they no longer have that option, I guess, or at least with this.
Well, and it's awful already because you're talking about two companies that are based within like 500 miles of you two.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So we got the game, came in late Saturday. My daughter, I haven't played it other than helping out with a sequence or two, but like I really wanted to watch it and just kind of see what Nintendo pulled together. And she really likes it. It's, I would say it's very akin to Kirby 3D World. In how it's very simplistic. It's basically a 2-button game, jump and whatever the attack is, and then she wears a bunch of costumes. The presentation overall is very good. The enemy is plastered all over like the worlds, and the silhouette that they post looks a lot like Svengoolie, which I find hilarious. But you're not fighting Bowser. It's like a new character. I forget what it's called, but they're taking over the theater for whatever reason. Very much a left to right side scroller in a 3D plane, so there's a little bit of depth. And it's mostly just kind of comes down to like the costumes. Like every level's a different stage in the play. Sometimes she's a ninja. Sometimes she's a baker. And I would say that how those are integrated into levels isn't super consistent. So there are some levels that just didn't appeal to my daughter. Like the detective one, for obvious reasons. That like wholly changes. It's like throwing Detective Pikachu in the middle of a Mario game. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense. But my daughter likes, seeing what the next power-up is going to be and unveiling the next costume. And it's very shallow progression rewards. Like you can get unlockable different patterns for your dress and stuff, but it's nothing really to motivate you to a great extent to make sure you got every collectible on every level. But yeah, super basic.
The costumes, are they like tied to each level?
Yeah. So
okay, that's what I was worried about.
It's like a themed play, but they do recycle them. We're already at the point where, like, obviously they're only going to have so many costumes. So you do start running into repetition. And there's some difficulty spikes that seem sort of out of place. And I mean, maybe they're meant, to entertain like the more hardcore gamer instead of the casual kid. And most of those tend to be optional challenges that just unlock bonuses instead of like actual levels. But for the most part, it's very simplistic premises. Some of the levels are like stupidly short. They're very generous with life counts and like, safety measures. Like, why don't you enable this and take like an extra 3 hits on this boss fight? And it's, but it was a solid mid-morning to afternoon fun for her. And then at some point she's just like, yeah, I'm done with this. And she hasn't picked it back up. What's weird to me though, is like, there are some spots where frame rate and stuff, especially on like loading screens and like some of the animation sequences, even when docked on an OLED, where it's noticeably stuttery, which is kind of crazy for a first party Nintendo game on the Switch. Like, you can tell, like, if they're struggling with it, well, it could mean a couple things. They didn't put the time into it, but it probably just means that if Nintendo's even struggling to get stuff running right, because you saw some of that stuff even with Tears of the Kingdom, like some of the background elements, like banners, particularly like waving in the wind, were like really choppy. So that's kind of on display here, not so much in the game, but in the world around it and the cutscenes. Sadly, I think this is probably going to be similar to how the Princess Peach game was before, where this thing got picked up by a few, but this is going to be largely overlooked.
It's going to be forgotten. Yeah.
But it is great. I mean, I highly recommend it if you have an impressionable kid at that age. I mean, it's nice to see, like, the woman can be the hero too and not the damsel in distress. So,
yeah, I'll probably pick it up. My daughter is here and there with video games.
Yeah,
she'll play Minecraft forever, but then the next game, maybe not. So I'm curious how that will land for her. Just from what I saw from it, I figured that's the way it was with the costumes and the levels. I was hoping it was more of a, you gather new the costumes became power-ups and you use those to stack into solving problems in each level. But
yeah, once you play it, you'll kind of see it, because like the costumes really fit into the environment that they're in, so it's like kind of themed around it. But yeah, I would put this like where I would put that Mario versus Donkey Kong reboot, where it's like, if there's a buy 2 get 1 half off, or the $40 price point, grab it, but you can wait for now. Certainly, we would not probably have much fun with. I mean, it's fine. I like the presentation, but like, it's not a game I would choose to probably play.
Right. Is this like the last? Is there even another announced first party Switch game?
Prime 4, but we all can kind of agree that's not coming until the next console. So,
right.
They would have said something by now.
Yeah. I have a son who just turned 7, and what he really wanted was a Switch because his older brother has one. And he's not quite to that age where I think, just give him a Switch and he'll take real good care of it yet. But even so, I felt like this is like the worst time to buy a Switch. Like, if I was going to go get a new Switch for a kid, like, why would you go do that?
God, you could almost just go onto their website and buy a first party refurbished like Switch Lite and call it a day, right?
But they're still like $180 or something.
Yeah. I think if they were like 130, it'd be like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, not without knowing what's around the corner. It's tough to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I ended up doing was giving him kind of a stopgap and gave him my old 3DS.
Oh, there you go. Which that's worth
And,
way more than a Switch Lite right now. So that was a mistake.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
That thing's like $300.
It's been so long since I think the kids have seen that, and definitely has not seen this thing before.
Sure.
So, it was funny because you start it up and you do the 3D thing, and it initially blows their mind, right?
Yeah.
And then about a half hour later, it was like, okay, we're turning that off.
Yeah, 100%. Like everybody did, right? It is, yeah. That's kind of good. I mean, that's about the age that Ryder really, my son got really into mine. I just, I had bought like the new 2DS XL and like, because it was a good price point, and I was like, well, maybe I'll get around to it and find some cheap games. And then I never touched it, and he had a blast, like going back and like kind of doing the greatest hits thing. The new Super Mario Brothers, the Haunted Mansion, and there's like a good 20 games on there that are perfect for kids at that age.
Oh, there's so many good games on there.
And the visuals.
Unfortunately, he's mostly going into some app called Nintendo Video. And it's just like these sketch video. It's just like some videos that Nintendo put on there. Just random videos of, I don't know. And they're in 3D, and then, but he just goes back and keeps watching them over and over again. It's like a YouTube, but only 5 videos, to choose from. So
you'll have to buy him one of those like 301 like DS cartridges off of Amazon. You can have like every game.
He already has a problem where it's like the first time you die in something, it's like, oh, home menu, go back to another thing. So trying to discourage. I'm trying to limit the game choices at the moment, but
force him to get good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad compromise. I wish they were still like putting out like even the like. I think they could still sell like a baseline 2DS model. Like it kind of blew my mind that they killed the 3D off as hard as they did, especially when it came up to the pandemic, when that would have been something they could have readily had on store shelves and people would have gobbled it up.
Yep.
But I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, when you think about how old the 3DS and DS was, and then how long in the tooth the Switch had gotten by the time because it was what, 3 years in by the time they discontinued it? Because they discontinued it, I feel like right at the pandemic, right? Like 2020 was. It was still there, but they weren't manufacturing it.
Yeah.
Because that was the point where I was like, well, maybe I'll buy a 2DS for myself, and then I waited too long, and they were all like fucking $150.
They were gone. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's it's a weird system, and the choices that they made were, like to base it off of 3D like that, and then even like the game that was still in there was like Pokemon Moon or something, and
right.
There's no 2D, there's no 3D in that at all. Like the whole game does not even have a 3D. Like how does that even happen? Where you start one basis on a console and by the end it's completely different, and you're not named Xbox.
Yeah, I was gonna say ask Xbox, but yeah, it's too bad because it's like it was a cool feature, but it drove that price point up like a good 30%, and then nobody cared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could have just really, yeah. I mean, they did right by the 3DS eventually, but man, the first 2 years of that thing were not great.
No, because I think it launched at like 250 or something like that, crazy.
And then it was like
I bought it at that, and then it was like,
yeah,
we're dropping it
189, and we'll give you like the early adopter like package to all of you people who bought it for 250, and so you've got all those games that you can't get anymore, huh? Did you download like?
Yeah, that was on a different 3DS. I'm not sure where that one is. It's around here somewhere, but I should find that because I remember there's specifically an app on there that you can go in there and it's just a certificate saying that, hey, you're an ambassador. Good job. You gave us an extra money.
You forked over some dough.
Scammed you.
Dude, they should send everyone a fruit basket who owned and loved Wii U, because there weren't a lot of us. Yeah. I had another interesting gaming device that we should touch on. Have you seen this GameSense thing? that is supposed to be an AI driven scent pod that plugs through your audio jack of your game and somehow like.
Oh, this is AI. I didn't know that.
Well,
I
they
thought the
claim
game had to program
it.
for it.
No, they claim it's got intelligent learning. It fucking doesn't. From what I encourage you to do is just go out on Amazon and read the reviews because some of them are like downright like hilarious. And everyone can pretty much agree that it does not work remotely as advertised, and that most of the stuff smells like a smell between like a shit and burnt rubber. So supposedly there's like there's scents that range from like rain to the smell of like gunmetal and like ammunition, and it's somehow supposed to intelligently decipher like the forest. Like I don't know how it picks up these cues through the audio. Like I could see maybe like okay, explosions and gunfire. It could maybe do that, but like yeah. I was watching I found out about because I was watching a giant bomb thing and Dan was doing like the Super Dan thing and they had it hooked up for Superman 64. He's like, my eyes are burning. He's like, should I be worried here? Like, do I need to open a window? And they're like, yes, Dan, open a window. So then I started Googling this thing and just going through the Amazon reviews and they're fucking hilarious. Everyone's like, yeah, this is not like a finished product. Like it smells like death. Like do not waste your money.
That's awful. What?
So it's like a Russian roulette Febreze from hell machine is basically how this works.
Well, for the most part, a lot of games, like if you're playing Call of Duty, why would you even want to smell the battlefield
100%.
anyway?
Right. Yeah. I can't imagine the person who's like, I need this in my life. Like the full 4D experience of Call of Duty. I don't know. There's some products that we just don't need in gaming, and that's 100% one of them. I just think it's hilarious.
Next thing you know, they're going to make. Oh yeah. To put out a product, not even prototype is one thing, but launch it.
Right. I'm sure some asshole thought he had the next big idea, and they're like, "Oh, we've spent so much like mocking this up that we need to like turn and burn now." So.
I want to see like a breakdown, like somebody open it up and see how it actually works.
Well, half the reviews are about how like they shipped the scents in like all these individual bottles, but that the seal on them was like shit. So like half the liquid was just like soaked into the box that it arrived in. It's pretty great. I think it's like $175 too, which is ridiculous.
Jeez.
And then everyone said like if you run your audio through it, like it just creates distortion and puts it back through into your audio loop. So like you get worse audio quality and your room smells like shit. So sign me up.
I don't know. I almost want to use that and like dump music through it and see like what genres smell like, what different genres smell like.
Yeah. Well, the people were saying that the racing one was probably the best. Apparently, like some of the reviews were saying like there's supposed to be like a burned rubber one. Like they said that didn't work, but they said surprisingly like the rain smell, like when you're playing a driving game and in the elements, like that one's actually somewhat pleasant. But even then, they're like it's no different than like a Febreze scent. Like there's no need for that. So I don't know.
Again, I mean, burnt rubber is. I mean, why would you want that in your house anyway?
Right. Terrible. Terrible. Well, I got more topics.
I hope they make it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll just touch on one more of my topics since I came with a huge list, but I watched that Ricky Stenicki movie finally on Prime. And that's way funnier than I thought it would be. It's got Andrew Santino. What's that guy from the musical, like the High School Musical? Zac Efron.
Oh, okay.
And then John Cena, which I don't know. John Cena kind of plays the same comedic actor in everything he does, but
yeah,
kind of don't mind it in certain cases. He's actually pretty good in this one. But yeah, this is a raunchy ass film. Like
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, like John Cena's character makes a living, like I forget what he calls himself, but he's like he does like a perverted like rock and roll show at like some shitty bar in Vegas or Atlantic City. And he just does like he just takes popular rock songs and like changes all the lyrics out to be about like masturbation and stuff, which is pretty hilarious.
Every 14-year-old's dream.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the whole premise is that like, these three guys like as kids lit somebody's house on fire, and then they got the brilliant idea as they were running away from it to like take one of the kids' jackets and like write in the collar Ricky Stanicky, which was like a made up kid. So then, threw the cops off the scent. And then that worked. So why not just keep that going through life? And now they're all like 40 somethings and they still like use that as excuses to get out of shit they don't want to do and get away from their wives and girlfriends. And then it comes to light that no one's ever met this guy and that these guys like bailed while a kid was being born and nobody could find him or track him down. So they're like, you're lying. So then they get desperate and basically have to hire John Cena's character to play their fabled Ricky Stanicky friend. And then that's kind of the whole premise of the movie. And it's pretty great because, he's just there and he like kind of infiltrates their whole lives, gets hired on at their employer. Cause like you think about the John Cena character, big rip dude. And then he's like this hard around the edges, like lays it straight, like type A personality. So like he kind of falls into the corporate world perfectly. And it's pretty hilarious. The only thing I thought was kind of like funny, and not funny like I care or that it bothers me, but like how like films now are like super inclusive, and like I always thought like Disney was like the most egregious one, where it's like I don't know. I always think back to like that live action Beauty and the Beast, where like when everyone's transformed from furniture into people, like they're all interracial gay couples, like every single one of them except the main two. It's like, okay, I get it, like inclusive, but like it's a little unrealistic. They kind of do some of that in here where it's like they're pretty much every couple's an interracial couple. The one interracial gay couple, the guy's also handicapped. And then there's like just a weird little person thrown in for some reason, that not like comedically, just like this guy's like the CEO of some business they're investing in. And like, I don't know. It's just a little on the nose. It doesn't bother me, but it just feels like this is the weirdest group of people to come to. I mean, and they can, like, that's fine. But, and I'm sure that exists somewhere, and like maybe only seems out of place to me because I've grown up in like the least inclusive part of the US. So like I just don't see that stuff. Again, no issues with it, but it's just like we really gotta fit everybody into these now. So I was surprised there wasn't like a Muppet or furry.
Well, that's all part of the Gamergate 2.0 thing, right?
Yes, yeah. But yeah, Ricky Stanicky it's fucking pretty great actually. So,
yeah.
It's
I'll have to check it out.
It's the type of comedy that they don't make anymore, and that certainly don't hit theaters anymore. And I think there's a reason that this went to Prime, because this is problematic in a lot of senses in today's climate. So, but funny. And put it up there with like a old school, like that sort of shit that they just don't make, or like a Super Bad. Maybe not as crazy as Super Bad, but and there's a pretty epic fight between like a small dog and a vengeful goose that is hilarious. So I won't say too much.
That sounds pretty good.
And two dogs doing it missionary, which let me tell you, if you've never seen dogs have missionary sex,
I can't even picture that. I don't know how. Yeah.
Well, luckily you don't have to because the movie shows you. So now I can't unsee it. So, and I can't unsee John Cena dressed up as Britney Spears in the schoolgirl outfit.
Oh boy.
He had that for a very long scene, which I didn't need to see. But he filled out that bra pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that one if I can find the time. That's the part now where it's like, obviously you can't watch this in front of kids, probably. So, by the time it's alone, I'm practically sleeping at this point. So
This is watch Prime on your phone while you're laying in bed, 30 minutes a night,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, that was our problem too. It took us, I'd been wanting to watch it for about 3 weeks, and I was like, I don't know when we're going to get to this because of the same situation you mentioned. So,
Yeah. Huh.
enjoyable. Yes.
Well, I only have one other thing. It's
Oh no, you fell back into the trap.
I haven't yet. I haven't
Oh,
yet.
Okay.
But I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it behind my back. Stardew Valley released a new huge update, and I see a lot of my friends, a lot of people logging right back into Stardew Valley, and I feel it coming on here that it's probably going to be happening here too. But there's some peer pressure happening in this house. I'm holding it off on it because I don't know if I can just jump right back into that and know what's going on and what to do. But there's some wild stuff in there. Apparently, there's like 8-player multiplayer now and
Oh
a
really?
whole bunch of new stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I know my daughter's been excited because she got into it like 3 weeks ahead of this update. So
Oh, really? Wow. Perfect timing for that.
yeah. Yeah, and I saw it was like charting again. Like it was back in the charts on Steam and everything. So everyone really went nuts for it. So
Yeah.
this had to have been a pretty substantial update then. Obviously, you said the 8-player online multiplayer.
Yeah.
Assuming they've got like new crops and like mechanics in there.
Which is crazy because he announced that he was making a new game about like being a chocolatier.
Instead of a farm.
Yeah, instead of a farmer, and that has not come out or even
Well-
has a release date. So,
And how old is Stardew Valley? Like 8 years?
oh yeah, at least I would think.
I mean, that's crazy for a small indie game like that to still get a patch. It's pretty wild. Yeah, you would think he's probably not making a lot of progress on a new game if he's putting this much effort into the old one.
Yeah,
And then to just update it too with like without any additional DLC cost.
yeah. I mean, it's always been that way, but it's just ridiculous that
Yeah, but you
he
can't do
keeps
that
adding
business
to
model
it.
forever, right?
No, that's why I'm like, how is he not making his new game? Why isn't he working on his new game at this point?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe he made
Speaking
so
of
much
tr-
money that he can
Yeah.
continue to do his passion project.
Now that I said chocolatier, I remembered that I watched the Wonka movie.
How was it?
I don't know if you've seen this.
Not yet.
I was not a fan. I don't understand what they were going for.
And I've only heard
They
people
may-
talking about like how great they thought it was.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really into musicals and you're not tied down to the first movie, I guess maybe. I'm not a fan of musicals, and this
I
was
know.
very musically. It's very musically heavy, and Willy Wonka is the most wholesome, caring character in this movie that I've seen in a lot of movies. Like
Supposed to be like a reclusive like dingbat weirdo.
right. And there's nothing in this movie that like has an arch where you'd be like, because this is supposed to be a prequel, right?
Right.
And there's nothing in there that makes it seem like, okay, well, this is how he got to be that way. And which is like the whole reason the first movie is so good is because it's such a weird tone
Right.
for what that movie is based around.
I know, like in watching the trailers, I was a little perturbed, in the fact that they said it was a prequel, and then like it's clearly laid out in the canon of the first movie that the Oompa Loompas were like people he rescued while exploring some jungle, and it's just like, okay, so there's Oompa Loompas in this movie, and he hasn't actually become Wonka yet. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like you're completely going backwards on what was established.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you're the first person I've heard that like actively did not like it, but I didn't.
I just-
either.
I can't stand what they did to. I don't understand how you could take that character and say, I'm going to make a new movie and then completely not understand the character at all.
That's too bad. So now, do you think they will make another one following this with the same cast and like try to reboot the movie a third fucking time?
I, boy, I
This
don't
did
know.
well, right? Like supposedly, I think.
I'm probably, yeah.
Hmm.
And I guess if this was a standalone movie, like if it wasn't attached to Willy Wonka, it's probably a good movie if you're really into musicals. But
Right.
that's where they really messed it up with me. I think is just like, how do you ruin that character?
It can't be worse than the Johnny Depp one, though.
I've not seen that one, so I'm lucky.
Yeah,
And I said,
watching that.
yeah, I've seen enough clips and stuff, like the CG hell that is that movie. That I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that came out at that phase where like everything had to be Johnny Depp. It was just like, can we not? Can he just be in Pirates of the Caribbean? He doesn't need to be the Lone Ranger, Willy Wonka, the 15 other things he was in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. All those Alice in Wonderland weird movies.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Where he looked like Elijah Wood for some reason. Why not just like Elijah Wood is my thought. But
because he's not weird enough.
Yeah. Well, maybe I won't watch that one then. It's been kind of on our short list, but I'll maybe let the girls watch that.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, while I didn't play Princess Peach, I actually did play a game in between. And I downloaded and installed that Dead Island 2 because it came to Game Pass. I was a really big fan of the first Dead Island. I think it's a great bad game. Thoroughly enjoyed myself in it, the jank and like all. The actual Dead Island 2 Riptide or sequel was a mess, so I never got through that just because like it kept crashing. But this is like a pretty polished game. I got into the opening, maybe put like 3 hours into it. The only thing that's like a bit much is like they really emphasize the gore. Like I mean, Dead Island in itself was like a game that was very heavily melee focused. Like guns were hard to come by, like late game items. But this is like they want like the dismemberment in your face. They want you to like curb stomp everybody for effective kills to the point where it's like, yeah, I get it, but it's too much.
It's still all first person, right?
Yeah. And then I got to a point where like I have to progress to like keep the story beat going along. And it had me in like this mansion area, which was fine. And I was having an okay time with it. But I needed like a fuse box and a key card. And for the life of me, and scouring like this, I don't know, like fairly large compound, like I ran loops around this thing and could not find the items I needed. And then what got more frustrating is they would just like randomly respawn zombies back into areas you'd already cleared. So it's like,
oh geez.
On top of the frustration of like trying to figure out why the fuck I can't progress, I'm also having to deal with these like respawning zombies, which I shouldn't be dealing with. So I just kind of dropped it. I don't know if I'm going to go back to it. I think like if I could get into it and get to the point where like the story opened up, it might be more fun, but I don't know. The gameplay loop wasn't rewarding enough. But I mean, I don't know. It'll probably get better. I'm not sure that I'm going to pick it back up with everything else that's kind of coming out right now.
Right.
I'm glad I didn't buy it. I'm glad I tried it on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Visuals are great though. Like I don't play a lot of stuff that's like optimized for next gen. Like I tend to play a lot of older stuff on Game Pass, but this has like some pretty amazing lighting effects and like obviously the gratuitous gore and like dismemberment parts because they emphasize the shit out of them. Like, look great. Like they're disgusting. I'm just not sure if there's enough to keep me there anymore. Like I think I might be over that sort of game.
Oh sure. Huh.
Just because I played, that was the craze, right? Like there were so many zombie games for a while.
Oh yeah. And that one was interesting because of the first person and traversal and stuff, right?
Right. And then it kind of got one-upped by Dying Light. It was like everything that had plus parkour. So it was like there was no need to go back to Dead Island, but yeah. Maybe I'll get back into it. If I can get my fear though is like if something that's supposed to be a straightforward like opening area is this frustrating with the simple puzzle? Like, what am I going to run into
Mhm.
later on in the game? And I don't want to get to a point where I'm just rage quitting. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The fact that you said that zombies respawn, like that type of stuff, I feel like if you're telling any type of story in a modern game, like you can't have that happen where it's like
Yeah.
that wouldn't happen. You already cleared it, you know?
Well, and what's particularly annoying about it is like it happens in one specific room, really only. So it's like super dumb.
Oh,
So it's even more on
yeah.
the nose, right? Like it's not like they're wandering in from outside. Like they just appear in this one room, and every time you run through it, there's more. So I don't know. I don't know.
Huh.
And they put a lot of emphasis on like there's like 5 or 6 characters you can pick from, and like you can tell they like really tried to like flesh out these like weirdo post-apocalyptic characters. And I don't know that any of the story beats are going to be interesting enough.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyway. We'll see. I tried it. At least I can say I did it.
Yep. Oh, did you see that Gearbox got sold?
No. To
Take
who?
Two bought them.
Oh.
So they have Borderlands and all that stuff now too. But what I want to bring up, because they part of the kind of paperwork and all that was that they announced that there was Borderlands 4 in development. Because it's like, well, of course.
There's a movie, so it makes sense.
I mean, they're making a movie, right?
Yeah.
So
Interesting. I mean, it's the right move, I guess, when the IP is back in people's purview.
yeah.
Not that it ever went away, because I feel like they've been pretty consistent in putting something Borderlands-ish out pretty often.
Mm-hmm. And that trailer looks all right for that movie.
Yeah.
I'll watch that movie.
And I've dabbled in those games, but I've never like invested enough time that I know who the characters are really. So, I mean, I know the big ones. Is that coming out to theaters or is that going to streaming?
I think it's theaters.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that'll be cool. I'll be curious to see how that does, because that's like if you're a gamer, you know of it, but I don't feel like Borderlands is like I'm a casual, it's not like a Halo or something, you know what I mean? Where like casual people
Right.
are aware. Which maybe will help it, because usually that's the death nail, right? Is like if people recognize that it's from a game, then they're not going to go to it if they're not gamers. So,
yeah, I think it's got enough charisma in it that it'll overcome, or it'll get people in the seats anyway, even if you aren't into the games or even know about them.
Sure.
It's got Kevin Hart, so of course everybody's going to go to it, right? Anything he does.
Well, I'm going for Bobby Lee, but Kevin Hart is about.
I forgot he's in that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting people in the seats, you're probably excited like I am, because I don't know, 9 days after we're recording this is going to be MGC 2024 with the Midwest Gaming Classic in Milwaukee.
Yeah, but you had some unfortunate news that it's possible our Doc's Smokehouse favorite restaurant might be a little bit different. They changed the name. The menu looks the same.
Yeah.
I'm a little wary.
Change in ownership and management is always something to be concerned about, especially since that one in Madison went under, right?
Yeah. A little uneasy about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
I am interested. Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this year goes, because I'm kind of wondering what year does it top out attendance wise.
Right. I saw they're going with the same layout they had last year, which was not my favorite. I thought the year that they did nothing on the bottom floor, but kept the ticketing hub on the second floor and then contained it on those upper 2 levels, felt the most cohesive. So I was a little bummed to see that they're going to do ground floor for ticketing and then tabletops all on the bottom floor. And then they're going to do like the interactive rooms in the second floor, and then vendors and arcade on the top floor again. I did see that they like designated in the vendor hall this year something called Artist Alley. So anyone who has like crafty merch stuff is going to be all along the outside wall, which I think is smart because
Yeah.
I think it irritated a lot of people that they were just like intertwined, right?
Yeah.
So it's like because there are people there that are for that, but the majority of people aren't. So it's nice to kind of give those people neighbors that make sense, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then I saw they're also adding like a tattoo artist this year, so Jill and I are going to get matching ass tattoos, I think. So,
what was it going to be? Like a
Zelda
heart or something?
Warp pipes on our taints leading up to our buttholes is what I'm going for.
Well, that's nice because then you can just shove whatever character you want in there, and
right. And then that's where I go to Artist Alley and I look for like various Mario themed butt plugs and stuff. It's like who's coming out of the warp pipe? I don't know. Let's.
This guy wants the Wario. Okay,
change it up. Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited because my kids are very excited this year. I could take it or leave it at this point. Like I know I'm probably not gonna purchase anything really much. So
yeah, same here.
The arcade section will be fun because you and I will both be at preview night, which will be fun. I mean, that's always a good time. But
yeah. And what's the main pinballs this year? I don't even remember.
Yeah, what did they announce? Jaws. Jaws would be the new one, right?
Oh, Jaws, yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the most exciting part is Stern is there with their new machine every year. And it's usually like if it's not debuted at the show, it's debuted like very early on. So and I think there have been like public appearances of that up till now, but yeah.
And Friday, if you wanted to, you can play that all night long. Right. If you wanted to,
nice. Saturday rolls around, good luck playing a game.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm curious. I'm gonna take it pretty casually this year and just kind of let the kids enjoy it and try to break up that trip. The drive. I don't know why the drive out there always just seems to take an eternity, even though I break it up. Because like that drive back, we just do straight, and it seems to go so much faster. But I guess that's indicative of road trip, right? Like the trip back is always shorter than the trip out. So
yeah, I think. Usually, like you're zoned out, like you're just checked out on the trip back. That you're just like, oh, we've arrived.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and hopefully the weather holds out. It looks like it's going to. So.
Yep.
I think it'll be a fun year. Are you gonna? Is there anything you're looking at remotely at picking up, or are you just kind of like, nah, I don't need
anything? I might look at there are some vendors that do like scratch and dent board games super cheap.
Sure.
Which that is kind of appealing, but at the same time, I don't want to lug around board games.
Right. Well, I'll have that hotel room across the street, so if you guys need to store stuff for a few hours, you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're kind of in the same spot. We've become really into board games lately. The kids have wanted to do that with us, which has been fun. So we'll probably do some of that. And then I usually buy like a vinyl soundtrack or two.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If I can find Jaguar stuff that's worth it, but like there's really just nothing on my radar that I plan to pick up. So
yeah. Yeah, it's different out there, I think. That's why I'm kind of interested to see if there's a drop off in attendance just due to that style of interest level. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they kind of did the right thing where like, well, I think they did the wrong thing, but I think it worked out well for them where like, like for years I would make comments about like, hey, like get YouTubers out there, like cater, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were 5 years too late to that, but they've only just really started promoting it the last 2 years. So I think there's still like people excited about that stuff. So I think that's helping. But yeah, I don't know at what point. I don't, and maybe it's just because like I'm so far removed from the community, like collecting wise. Like, are the new generations coming in? Like, are the 28-year-olds coming in and buying PlayStation 2 games, or is no one really? I don't know.
I mean, I think there might be, but I don't know if there's anybody after that. Like, because then you're getting into
digital,
mobile gamers, kind of people who started in mobile games and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to remember how many years I've been going to MGC now, and I want to say it's been like 11, which is crazy. I mean,
Wow.
it didn't happen one year, obviously, but it's been a lot.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know if I had two kids the first time I went. I might have only had one, or I just had. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I. Hmm.
because you and I went.
I,
We both went the same year, right? For the first year, like you went with your cousins, and I went
yeah.
down with Justin, and
Yeah. I
yeah.
don't think I was married yet. Maybe
No, you were married because I didn't know you
I
before you were
was.
married.
Okay.
Yeah, because you had just had your first, and I had kind of two, or we had. Yeah, yeah. You and I just had one kid when we first met. It's interesting, but yeah, it's wild to think like how long that's been going on. It is
Yeah.
pretty
And
amazing
how
too
far it's gone.
that these guys have been able to grow it to the size they have and still pretty much kept it to a two-man operation that bankrolls it themselves. Like that's the most impressive part.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. I'm
I think.
curious.
I think
Oh, go ahead.
this was the first year though that I checked out with tickets, and then there was like a service fee. I'm like, what is this for? You know, it's
Right.
like, oh no, they got Ticketmastered here.
Yeah. And their tickets are pretty expensive. Like that preview night is not cheap. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the Sunday family day is a nice thing. I mean, I'm not sticking around for it. Um, but the VIG, like that used to be something where like when VIG first started, I was paying like $60 for the weekend for that. Now it's like 100 and that's almost $200, which
Yeah.
I
Which
just
is
I can't
ridiculous.
justify that anymore. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it will be a good time. It's just gonna be, you know, it'll be interesting because like in years past, I would have gone to, you know, three or four community meetups or some other stuff like that in between. But like I haven't been to a retro gaming show, swap meet, or anything since MGC last year. So this will be
Yeah.
kind of my
Haven't
first
seen Mobile
thing.
Game World since then either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're doing the thing yet. I don't know.
I was curious on that too, so I looked, and they are a registered vendor. So well, we'll see
Okay.
them there. But yeah, I haven't talked to any of those guys in forever. It's wild. But yeah,
Huh.
we'll have probably a full episode on that next time, and we'll have our normal episode too. But we can kind of get into what
Yep.
we saw. Hopefully, there's some cool, unique. There usually are like a cool, unique game or two, like a homebrew or an arcade cabinet. So fingers crossed.
Yep. And you want to see the video version if you of the tattoos. So
Yes, yes. I will come spread my taint on camera for you guys, assuming it's healed. Yeah. Well, should we get into staff picks? I'll let you go
yeah.
first.
Yeah. My staff picks. We started watching. You know, most people are aware of Top Gear, the old British, grumpy British guys who do weird things with cars. Then they went to Amazon, and I was really excited about that. And I watched one season, and then I just kind of checked out on it. But we've been going back and going through the ones that really, I think, are a highlight for that. For those guys, is the ones where they do like road trips, and then they just do dumb shit and pranks and stuff along the way.
The budget supercars and like hitting brakes and
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So those have been pretty enjoyable. And you know they're like a basically movie length at that point too. So they're have a lot of meat on them, big budget kind of. Um, yeah, it's like a super episode of those type of old ones that I really enjoyed.
Sure.
Um, they they've always been a little bit fake. I mean, there's a lot of the stuff and pranks and stuff that they do are obviously not real, and a lot of the like probably real trying stuff that they're doing, I'm guessing, is like they're in the car for 5 minutes and then they have somebody else do it, or
Right. Right. Yeah. Movie magic.
yeah. But and it shows a lot more. Like I don't know if it's just me who've gotten more cynical about reality TV and that type of stuff, that I can catch that stuff more now. But yeah, it's pretty present.
I definitely remember like the one that was the most notorious for me was the one where they were doing like testing those 3-wheeled cars. And like I watched a whole episode of like behind the scenes and how they were talking about how they like fucked with the suspension, put like weights up under the front wheel, like just to make sure that those things rolled every time they went on a corner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So that wasn't even, yeah. So they faked even all that just to make, yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, it's just a comedy improv show for the most part. So it's like you got to treat it as like that instead of like a real kind of reality, like real road trip type thing.
Yeah, it's funny how like popular that was, but like how the American version just didn't ever take hold.
Yeah. I think they've tried it like 3 different times now with different people and it never does. And I think it is. It's just for me, it's like you got that extra like chemistry and then you got that layer of like thick British humor in it.
Your quote.
That you're just not, yeah, you're not as accustomed to on a daily basis. And you also, it freshens it up a little bit. But
yeah, I mean, it's definitely held its fans and reputation for many because it's been off the air forever now, right? Like,
yeah, I think they started those 3. They started in like early 2000s.
Yeah,
and then then Amazon bought them or whatever, which they just, and then they've hoarded themselves out too, where there's like each of those guys have like 3 other shows that they do for Amazon. Where it's like Clarkson's Farm and James May is in Japan, and it's like, oh my gosh, guys.
Hey, if they're throwing money at you, you just keep doing it, right?
Yeah, I suppose. But my kids, they're seeing this stuff for the first time, and they're really liking the pranks. So
nice. Yeah, it's solid.
And I think they're young enough where they're not seeing the stuff that was like no way they actually did that in real life. You know, right. Like they're like, holy crap, they did that.
Nice. Well, my staff pick is not as interesting, I guess, but I'm gonna take your board game corner up and
yeah.
So Zillionaires on Mars is the one I'm gonna recommend. It's just like a property purchasing wager sort of game. It's just a simple board where everyone's bidding on property spaces, not unlike Monopoly, but your goal is just to get 4 properties in a row in any direction, vertically, horizontally, diagonally. So it's kind of becomes a game of like bluffing and tactics. Like everyone starts out with the same amount of money, and then you earn money back based on how many properties you have on a board on like random payday cards. So you're kind of always like trying to determine like, do you fight for something and like try and get your money back on paydays and then hiding your cash so people don't know. And then you can also bluff. But if you like bluffed and won and then came up short, you have to forfeit a property on the board. So it kind of becomes like this brutal game of who can pocket enough money to like cock block somebody, and then as a result, you end up bankrupted and they fuck you over and win. I don't know. It becomes very hectic. It's very fast, which is nice. Like if you got people who are like paying attention and rolling and are flipping cards and going, it's like a 20 to 30 minute game, but super chaotic. People get pissed off. I guess it's like, I got it at Five Below for $5, but I guess this game has been around for a long time. It was called like Game of 49 initially. And then the Super Potato Games put out Zillionaires on Mars. And there's also still being sold in other places, Zillionaires across the USA. It's all the same game. It's just the different theming, but and then it all kind of hinges around the center of the board, which is Space 49. In Space 49, you can own, but it's never truly yours. You just hold it as long as you've been the highest bidder. So you can always, flip the script on that. And then, there's the other thought of like, well, how much money do I invest in something that is not truly mine? And I don't know, it becomes fun. I've been playing a lot of that with the kids. My daughter loves it. And then my wife and I usually end up in arguments about spaces and like keep one-upping each other and pissing each other off. So.
Yeah, that sounds like like the perfect balance of like risk reward type, and then the swings between people that are playing because of
Yeah.
that.
And you're fully allowed to
How
in the
that
rule
plays
book
out.
to like make side deals and wagers and stuff. Like it's all encouraged. So it's kind of like all the cool like shitty ruthlessness of Monopoly, but with like without the hours and hours long
Hmm.
length. So yeah, pretty cool. And for $5, it's hard not to recommend.
Yeah, yeah. I'll add that to my list.
But I suppose with that, we're finally at the weekend rental, huh?
Mm, yeah.
So weekend rental, of course, for the uninitiated, we play a game for a given system. We give our opinion on whether we would personally buy, rent, or burn that game. We're doing the Game Boy Color this week, and it is Mario Golf. If you follow us on Twitch, you might have got to watch us play it a little bit on there poorly. And then at some point we got bait and
Not
switched and went to Mario
thoroughly.
Tennis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I'll go ahead.
yeah, I mean, on our stream, we boot up the game, pick a player. There's like 3 empty spots, and then there's Mario and Luigi. Well, you're gonna pick one or the other. You're gonna pick. You want to play Mario? You want to play
Right.
Luigi? So you pick one of them, and then basically all there is just go play a round of practice golf with those. And we came away from that stream pretty like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous as a product. If this is just
Yeah, because we'd always heard like it was such a cool game and had like this RPG elements and stories, and we're like, what the fuck? Where is that?
yep, which we found in the tennis one,
Correct.
and then we were like, oh, this is a little bit too much RPG stuff.
Just let us play tennis.
But upon thorough review, that stuff is in this game only if you create a character,
Right.
picking one of the empty spots. Which I guess, hey, it's a role-playing game. You're playing a role.
Which can I just say
But-
too? The character creator is a bit shallow. Like your choices are sex, hand, and then 2 caricatures for each sex. So like, and then naming them. It's pretty lame.
Yep.
Could be better.
I picked the guy with the mullet.
Me too.
Yep.
I named him Dr. Dong. What did you name yours?
I think I just went with Joe or something that said.
Okay, the standard name. Okay.
Yep.
That works too.
Yeah, and then it opens up kind of the same type of thing as the tennis game where, hey, there's kind of an academy at your local golf club. And then, you got to go to all these other clubs to get tournaments and gain favor and more experience points to better your stats. And it gets you into the golf pretty quick. That's what I was.
Yes, much
was
better
way
than the
better than
tennis
tennis.
game. Yes.
I guess it didn't flesh out the characters and your roommates and everything like that, like the tennis game did. But nonetheless, I preferred this version of that type of gameplay.
Yeah, it's just enough meat, and then not enough to really like get in the way and like frustrate a person from getting to the point. Yeah, it seemed like such a bare bones game when we streamed it, but yeah, upon review, like once you start getting into that, then you kind of get into the whole thing and like getting better and like boosting your stats. And really ultimately at the end of it, once you've unlocked everything, this is only a 5-course golf game. And there's only so much you can do with golf. So I think if had they not sprinkled that in, it would be pretty easy to kind of pass on this. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it once I created a character and got going. Really the presentation on this thing is great. There's a lot of familiar themes and sound effects used from the Mario universe. The setup and like the different club masters that you have to take on, and like some of the simple jokes are pretty funny. It's also cool that there's different like mini games from different practice courses and like coaches along the way in the open world. I really enjoyed that.
And I think this is one of the first Mario sports games that came out, and it has Zelda stuff in it, which is like, after this, they just like, oh no, we're not going to let Zelda get into our Mario sports games again. There's a whole course based on Zelda in this game, which is kind of fun.
Which makes total sense.
The links. There's nothing like really explicit about it. I mean, it's just basically like your competitors, you can tell by their name. And there's some things here and there on the course, but nothing really like overtly Zelda.
And hats off to Nintendo by naming one of the pros Gene Yus. Well done. Really well thought out. Hats off, Nintendo. Good old Gene, you know? Yeah, I think what's really cool is once you beat the main 4 courses, you know, you get credits and you log out, but then when you come back, like you have this letter, sort of melee style, from Peach, and like it doesn't really like do anything other than she's like congratulating you and like blah blah blah. But then you get into the game and people are telling you to like, hey, go check out this course, and it's the final course in the game. So when you get over there on the map, all of a sudden a shooting star comes out. Crash lands in the woods, and there's a big old rainbow. You hop on that thing, and it shoots you over to the Princess Peach's castle. And for a game that's relatively, like, they reference Mario, there are references to Link, but it's basically like scrubbed of all the Mario universe in the way that Mario sports games are now. Like when you shoot over to the castle, that goes whole home.
Yeah.
And like it's Mario as shit. All the characters are there. All the holes are Mario character like themed. And it's just a really awesome payoff at the end of this game. And it's a brutal challenge too.
That course is, oh boy. No
you basically
joke.
Have to finish like 1500s to beat Mario on an 18-hole course.
And those greens are tiny.
Can I ask you, when you beat that, did your game glitch too? Like during like the congratulations ceremony after you beat that cup?
No, I went to other credits.
Okay, so I did get to those credits eventually, but like when they're like, congratulations, you won, it looked like a dirty cartridge on my screen. Like the pixels.
Oh, really?
It was all fucked. Everything was discolored and nothing was like truly visual. The game continued on after that, but like I've never seen that in emulation on the Nintendo Switch Online before. But yeah, something corrupted in there. Weird for me. I was glad it didn't crash, but it looked like I was playing a dirty cartridge.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Yeah, that part was probably my favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
I hit those first credits and I was kind of bummed that I'm like, well, that was pretty short. You know, you just beat the 4 things and then you're done. And then they talked about how Mario is such a great golfer at the beginning of that game.
Right.
That you're like, I just like, there's got to be something more in there. And sure enough, that whole section's in there, and yeah, that's pretty fun. Yeah.
Well, the thing I laughed at though was like when you beat that, you kind of go back to your home course, and then like everyone's congratulating you, like all the administrators and like staff and stuff, and they're like, "Oh no, but every golfer's dream is to beat Mario. Like, what happens for a golfer without a dream?" And then they like ask you to be hush hush. Like, can you please not tell people that you beat Mario? But I'm like, no, dumbasses, I'm the new Mario. Everyone's dream now becomes to beat me. Like, that's not how this works in sports. So
I don't know. You've disgraced Mario. That doesn't go far.
But it is kind of cool that like, there's a little more to it, like you said, because it does feel a bit shallow. And then you get to that, that's really cool. And then from there, I took on the challenge of like taking down all the other like course masters in a 1v1, which unlocks them all as playable characters. So pretty neat. There's I don't know, doing that, you know, with the benefit of a rewind when you need it on the Switch was still probably, I probably put like 4 or 5 hours into it, which I think is adequate for a game like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could not imagine playing that Mario course without a rewind. I mean, I don't think there's a way. You have to perfect every single shot. And it's like, well, a course is a half hour long. You really want to spend a half hour with the chance that you might mess up one shot and ruin it all?
So this had a battery backup and a save feature, which it seemed like you could access at any point. So I wonder, like, was it possible that you could have like saved, scummed, and like done some of that? It would have been more tedious, but
sure.
Because yeah, I'm with you. Like
that would be one way.
It would only take one bad hole on the Mario course to undo all your effort.
Yep.
Yeah, it like having the rewind feature really helped me get good fast, because like you don't have to do the trial and error like over many holes. It's like, okay, I'll correct these like early games as much as I need to, and then by the time you're done with your first course, like you've kind of got the timing down to where more of it falls in line. And I still ended up using it occasionally, but it wasn't like I relied on it as much as I did early on.
Yep. I think these golf courses are designed in a straight line or left to right. There is no over and backs, because you're playing on a real golf course and the wind's coming against you on one hole. Chances are there's another hole, at least one other hole in that course where the wind is going away from you. And I never found that in this game.
That's a good
point. I never found a hole that went like 18 miles an hour straight away, which was like, that's
and then
what I'm
the
looking
next hole
for.
and it's 0. It's like, yeah, that's how weather works.
Yeah.
Just stop sometimes. Yeah, I didn't think about that. It's funny too, when we streamed it, we were just like perplexed by the fact that you would start a hole and a shy guy would fly across the screen. We're like, why? Why is there a shy guy? And then like upon revisiting it, you're like, oh, he indicates the wind direction for someone too lazy to just look in the corner to see where that's coming from. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, the gameplay is solid.
Yeah, and that wind dynamic really plays in. Like, it's not something you saw in a lot of golf games up to then, so it kind of really made you plan out shots more. It's fun. I mean, it's golf. It's all the power meter, the timing, the putting's pretty accurate. Really, this game's mostly about just not landing in the rough. If you can manage to stay out of the rough, you're gonna have a pretty straightforward time.
Yeah.
When you get into bunkers and stuff, like mastering that stuff sucks, but.
Yeah, because you can't really tell how much it's taking off your shot. No. It doesn't really show that.
Especially with the wind factors and stuff, because like the height coming out of bunkers, your ball goes so much higher. But, yeah. I mean, what do you think about it then? Like, what would you give it as far as a rating upon giving it a little more time?
I think I would buy this game. We played it next to tennis, and after that, I was like, well, tennis is I don't like tennis as much, but it was a more fleshed out game. This is just as fleshed out. It's got less story in it, but I think that's a plus in this type of game. Yeah. And the gameplay is better. The tennis was just too repetitive and it's too much. But golf gameplay is solid enough, and it makes you feel good when you actually be like, oh, I knew exactly like where to put the pointer, and I aimed it and I got the right shot to get in the hole. And that there's a lot of like, yes, like screaming yes accomplishment in that,
or landing behind a tree and screaming fuck. But
yeah, it's that too.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd give it a buy. I got really sucked into this game, probably more so than I have on a Byron Burn in a very long time, and I thoroughly enjoyed beating it and then going back to it and continuing to play it after I did that. So I think the fact that you can approach it now on Nintendo Switch Online with the benefit of the rewind feature adds a lot to making it a more enjoyable experience. But I think even without that, it would still be fun. It would just take you longer to build up the skills to get there.
Yep.
But yeah, great game. I loved it. I'll probably still go back to it from time to time, to be honest. So
yep.
Makes me wonder if you can do like a versus mode if we went online. I bet we could, huh? Through Switch.
Oh yeah. I bet there's a way to do that. Yeah, that's the one part that when you played the versus against the masters or whatever, the coaches, then you have to watch them play too. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but I just wish it was fast. Like, I could click
I
through it and be
know.
like, go to my turn.
I kept spamming the button. I was like, damn it, there's no skip feature. So I found with those guys though, it was like a pain in the ass up until you got your first point, and it seems like once you get a point on them, it like shakes their reserve because then like they just miss putts continuously until you win.
Yeah.
Point. I had one of the
Yeah, nobody was
like,
hitting.
Chip in from like fucking 50 yards away and like sunk it. I was so pissed.
Oh wow,
so pissed because it was like a par 4 too. Like, you bastards.
Huh.
Yeah, and that feeling of getting a hole in one is awesome.
I didn't get one.
I've only ever gotten one, and I'll take that. It felt great. Well, I guess that's another Byron Burn in the books, eh?
Yeah, it's another episode too. So,
sorry everyone again that I was a sleazy, disgusting mess, but powered through.
Yep, we're all humans.
Except the aliens. They're aliens.
Yeah, but what diseases do they have? They're probably worse.
Yeah. Hexagonorrhea? I don't know.
COVID-19.
Oh boy. COVID-25.
Well, guys, you can reach us at weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter. And hey, yeah, watch us on Twitch because we're playing these Byron Burn games a little bit.
Yeah.
A cursory look.
It's happening in between uploads of episodes, which we do every other Saturday. So usually midweek, we're trying to do it at some point in between recordings.
Yep. That's twitch.tv/weekendrental. You can find us there. You can get notified when we go live whenever we do that. So follow us over there. But until next time, be kind, rewind.